The sharp crack echoed through the still summer air as the backhoe's metal scoop sliced through the earth. Karen's eyes burned with determination as she tore into my carefully manicured lawn, heedless of the consequences. What she didn't know was that underneath the soil lay a critical fiber optic line, the lifeblood of my family's satellite internet, and her reckless actions were about to plunge us into a living nightmare. I had just settled in for a lazy Sunday afternoon, ready to catch up on some streaming, when the rumbling outside shattered the peace. Rushing to the window, I watched in horror as Karen, my next-door neighbor, maneuvered a massive backhoe across the property line and onto my land. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted, bursting out the front door. Karen glared at me, her face set in a stubborn scowl. "I'm putting in a new garden bed. This strip of grass has been annoying me for years. But you can't just." My words died in my throat as the backhoe's teeth sank into the earth with a sickening crunch. I knew in that instant what was about to happen, but I was powerless to stop it. The lights flickered, and my laptop screen went black. No, no, no! I raced toward the downed machine, my heart pounding. A tangle of severed cables spilled from the gaping wound in the soil, sparks dancing along the exposed wires. "What's going on?" Karen demanded, finally noticing the chaos she had wrought. "You hit my satellite fiber line," I shouted, my hands shaking with rage. "Do you have any idea how much this is going to cost to repair?" Her eyes widened, a flicker of panic crossing her features. I didn't know. How was I supposed to know there was a line buried here? "It's a private line, Karen. You should have checked before tearing up my yard without permission." I knelt beside the damaged cables, assessing the extent of the destruction. This wasn't just an inconvenience. It could take days, even weeks, to get the system back online, and the repair bill would be astronomical. Karen shuffled her feet, suddenly looking small and uncertain. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I just wanted a bigger garden." I glared at her, my jaw clenched. "Well, congratulations. Now you've got one, at the expense of my family's internet." Turning on my heel, I stormed back into the house, already dreading the conversation I would need to have with my wife. This was going to be a costly mistake, both financially and in terms of our quality of life. Karen had violated my property and destroyed a critical piece of our infrastructure, all without a second thought. The implications of her actions were only beginning to sink in, and I knew that this was far from over. Somehow, I would have to make her pay for the damage she had caused, even if it meant taking her to court. No one messed with my family's internet and got away with it. I paced the living room, phone pressed to my ear as I waited for the internet service provider to pick up. Each ring only served to ratchet up my anxiety. Finally, a crisp voice answered. "Satellite internet support. How can I assist you today?" "This is an emergency," I said, trying to keep my tone calm and professional. "I need to report a downed fiber line on my property. My neighbor accidentally hit it with a backhoe." There was a brief pause. "I see. That is a very serious issue. Let me connect you with our damage response team." After a series of transfers and endless hold music, I finally reached a technician who could dispatch a repair crew. But when I explained the situation, his reaction was not what I had hoped for. "I'm sorry, sir, but damage to a private fiber line is not covered under our standard service agreement. You'll be responsible for the full cost of repairs." My stomach dropped. "What? But this isn't my fault. My neighbor destroyed the line without permission." "I understand your frustration, but the line is your private property. Any damage, regardless of the cause, is your financial responsibility." I slumped onto the couch, pinching the bridge of my nose. "Do you have any idea how much this is going to cost?" It's difficult to provide an exact estimate without assessing the extent of the damage, but private fiber line repairs can easily run into the thousands of dollars. I'd suggest contacting your neighbor and their homeowner's insurance to see if they can provide any coverage. Thousands of dollars. The number echoed in my mind, a daunting weight that threatened to crush me. I had just finished paying off our new roof, and a repair bill of that magnitude could set us back for months. Sighing heavily, I thanked the technician and ended the call. Now I had to figure out how to break the news to my wife. This was going to be a tough conversation. Heading back outside, I steeled myself to face Karen once more. She was still standing by the backhoe, wringing her hands anxiously. "So?" she asked, her voice small. I fixed her with a hard stare. "It's not good. The damage to the fiber line isn't covered by their service plan. I'm going to be stuck with the entire repair bill." Karen's face fell. "Oh, no. I'm so sorry. I had no idea there was anything important buried there." "That's the problem, Karen," I said, my tone laced with bitter frustration. "You didn't bother to check before tearing up my yard. Now we're facing a financial disaster because of your carelessness." She opened her mouth to respond, but I held up a hand, silencing her. "Just go home. I need to figure out how to tell my wife about this." As Karen slunk away, I felt a growing sense of dread. This was going to be a long, difficult road ahead. The moment I stepped through the front door, I knew I was in for a painful conversation. My wife, Sarah, looked up from her book, her expression instantly shifting to one of concern. "What happened?" I heard all the commotion outside. I sank onto the couch, running a hand through my hair. "It's not good, honey." Karen hit the satellite fiber line with her backhoe. Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief. "What? How could she do that?" "She was trying to dig a new garden bed on my side of the property without asking. Didn't even bother to check if there was anything important buried there." I let out a frustrated sigh. The internet provider said the repairs are going to cost thousands of dollars, and it's all on us. "Thousands?" Sarah's voice rose in pitch. "But we just finished paying off the roof. How are we supposed to afford that?" I shook my head helplessly. "I don't know. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Karen said she's sorry, but that doesn't exactly fix the problem." Sarah leaned back against the cushions, her brow furrowed. "This is unbelievable. What are we going to do?" "I'm going to have to try and work something out with Karen," I said. "See if her homeowner's insurance can cover at least part of the cost. But if not," I trailed off, the weight of the situation bearing down on me. "It's not fair," Sarah murmured, her gaze drifting to the floor. "We worked so hard to get that satellite system set up. It's the only way we can stream movies and stay connected. And now, it's all ruined because of one thoughtless act." "I know." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "But we'll figure this out, okay? Somehow, we'll make it work." Sarah nodded, though her expression remained troubled. "I just hope Karen is willing to take responsibility for this. Otherwise, we could be looking at a huge financial burden." "Trust me, I'm going to make sure she does," I said, a new determination settling over me. "This isn't just about the money. It's about principle. She violated my property and destroyed something crucial to our family. There have to be consequences." With a heavy heart, I pulled out my phone and started dialing Karen's number. This conversation was not going to be pleasant, but I had to at least try to get her to take some accountability. Our financial future could depend on it. The phone rang, and with each passing second, my frustration continued to build. Finally, Karen answered, her voice trembling. "Hello." "Karen, we need to talk." I kept my tone measured, determined not to let my anger boil over just yet. "Look, I'm really sorry about what happened," she said quickly. "I feel awful, and I want to do whatever I can to make it right." I took a deep breath. "That's good to hear, because the repairs to the fiber line are going to cost thousands of dollars. Money that we don't have." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Thousands? But I didn't realize it would be that much." "Well, it is," I replied, my patience wearing thin. "And as the one who damaged the line, You're responsible for covering the costs. I don't know if I can afford that, Karen stammered. My insurance policy only covers so much, and I just had my roof replaced last year. I pinched the bridge of my nose, trying to stave off a growing headache. That's not my problem, Karen. You're the one who decided to tear up my yard without any regard for what might be buried there. Now you have to face the consequences. But can't your insurance cover it? She asked, her voice tinged with desperation. No, it can't, I snapped. This was a private line, not part of the public utility infrastructure. The repair bill falls squarely on you. Karen let out a shaky sigh. I don't know what to say. I really didn't mean to cause so much trouble. I was just trying to make my garden look nicer. Well, you've certainly succeeded in that, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Congratulations, Karen. Your nicer garden has now put my family in a precarious financial situation. I'm so sorry, she said, her voice quivering. I'll do whatever I can to help, I promise. Maybe we can work out a payment plan or something. I considered her offer for a moment, but the anger was still too fresh. I'm going to need to think about this. In the meantime, I want you to contact your homeowner's insurance and see if they can cover at least part of the repair costs. Okay, I'll do that right away, Karen said quickly. And please, let me know if there's anything else I can do. I'll be in touch, I replied, my tone clipped. Without another word, I ended the call, tossing my phone onto the couch cushion beside me. Sarah looked at me expectantly. Well? I shook my head, letting out a frustrated sigh. She's going to try to get her insurance to help, but I have a feeling that's not going to be enough. We're still going to be stuck with a massive bill. Sarah's shoulders slumped. I was afraid of that. This is just so unfair. I know, I said, reaching over to give her hand a gentle squeeze. But we'll get through this, I promise. One way or another, we'll make it work. As much as I wanted to believe my own words, a sense of dread continued to weigh on me. The financial burden ahead was daunting, and I couldn't help but wonder how we would ever recover from this unexpected disaster. Over the next few days, I waited anxiously for any update from Karen. In the meantime, the internet outage wreaked havoc on our daily lives. Without access to streaming services, online banking, and remote work, we felt cut off from the world. The kids are going stir-crazy, Sarah lamented one evening as we sat in the dim glow of candlelight. They keep begging to watch their shows. I nodded sympathetically. I know. And I'm starting to feel disconnected from my clients. This is a real problem. Sarah sighed. Do you think Karen has heard back from her insurance yet? I'm not sure, I admitted, running a hand through my hair. She said she'd let me know, but so far, there's been radio silence. Just then, the familiar ringtone of my cell phone pierced the stillness. Snatching it up, I saw Karen's name on the caller ID. Hello. Hi. I wanted to give you an update, Karen said, her voice tinged with apprehension. Go on, I prompted, bracing myself for bad news. Well, I filed the claim with my homeowner's insurance, but they said the damage to your fiber line isn't covered. Something about it being a private system and not part of the public utilities. I let out a frustrated groan. Of course not. Nothing is ever that simple. I'm so sorry, Karen said quickly. I was really hoping they'd be able to help, but it looks like I'm going to have to cover the full cost of the repairs myself. And how exactly do you plan to do that, Karen? I asked, my tone sharp. You said yourself that you can't afford thousands of dollars. I don't know, she admitted. I'm going to have to figure something out. Maybe I can take out a loan more. That's not my problem, I interrupted. This entire situation is your fault, and now my family is suffering the consequences. I can't just sit back and wait for you to figure something out. I understand your frustration, Karen said, her voice small. But please, give me a little time. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I pinched the bridge of my nose, feeling a headache building. Fine. But I need a solid plan of action within the next 48 hours, Karen. This can't drag on indefinitely. Okay, yes, I'll get back to you as soon as I can, she promised. I ended the call with a weary sigh, turning to Sarah. Her insurance won't cover it. Looks like we're on our own. Sarah's face fell. Oh no. What are we going to do? I don't know, I'd admitted, my shoulders slumping. But Karen has 48 hours to come up with a real solution. If she can't, then I'm going to have to take matters into my own hands. The unspoken threat hung in the air, a heavy weight that only seemed to grow heavier with each passing day. Time was running out, and the future of our family's connection to the digital world hung in the balance. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of anxiety and frustration. I found it increasingly difficult to focus on my work, constantly checking my phone for any updates from Karen. Finally, as the deadline approached, my cell rang. Taking a deep breath, I answered. Hello. Hi. It's Karen, she said, her voice quivering. I think I may have a solution, but you're not going to like it. I braced myself. Okay, tell me. Well, I spoke to my cousin who's a contractor, and he said he might be able to do the fiber line repairs at a discounted rate. But, she paused, and I could practically hear the hesitation in her voice. But what? I pressed, my patience wearing thin. But I don't have the full amount up front, she admitted. So I was hoping we could work out some kind of payment plan. I pinched the bridge of my nose, exhaling slowly. Karen, I don't know if you remember, but I gave you a 48-hour deadline to come up with a solution. This isn't exactly what I had in mind. I know, she said quickly. But please hear me out. My cousin is willing to do the work for $3,000, and I can pay you $500 a month until it's paid off. That way, the financial burden isn't all on you. I considered her proposal, weighing the options. It wasn't ideal, but at this point, I was desperate to restore our internet service, and the thought of having to shell out thousands of dollars all at once made my stomach churn. Okay, fine, I relented. But I want a written agreement, and the work needs to be done within the next week. I can't afford to wait any longer. Absolutely, Karen said, her voice filled with relief. I'll have my cousin come by tomorrow to assess the damage and get started right away, and I'll get that agreement drawn up tonight. Good. And Karen? I paused, making sure to keep my tone firm. This is your last chance. If you don't hold up your end of the deal, I won't hesitate to take this to court. I understand, she said, her voice subdued. I really appreciate you giving me this chance. I promise I won't let you down. As I ended the call, Sarah looked at me expectantly. Well? Karen says her cousin can do the repairs for $3,000, and she'll pay me back in $500 monthly installments, I explained. It's not ideal, but at least it's a solution. Sarah's brow furrowed. Are you sure we can trust her to follow through? I shrugged, a weariness settling over me. I don't have much choice at this point. If she doesn't hold up her end, I'll have to take her to court. But for now, it's the best we've got. Sarah nodded slowly, her expression still tinged with uncertainty. I just hope this works out. I don't know how much longer we can go without the internet. Me neither, I admitted, glancing out the window at the empty, silent yard. But at least it's a start. Now we just have to wait and see. As the hours ticked by, I found it increasingly difficult to relax. The future remained uncertain, and I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that this was far from over. True to her word, Karen's cousin arrived the very next day to assess the damage to the fiber line. I'd watched anxiously from the window as the two of them surveyed the torn-up earth, muttering to each other in low tones. After nearly an hour, the cousin approached the front door, Karen trailing behind him. I took a deep breath and opened it to greet them. Well? I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. The damage is pretty extensive, the cousin, whose name I later learned was Marcus, explained. Looks like the backhoe really did a number on that fiber line. But I think I can get it patched up and running again within the next couple of days. I nodded, my gaze drifting to Karen. And the cost? $3,000, just like Karen said. Marcus replied. I'll need half of that up front to cover the materials and labor, and then the other half when the job is done. I hesitated, glancing at Karen. And you're good for the monthly payments? She nodded quickly. Absolutely. I've already got the first $500 set aside. Letting out a slow breath, I reached into my wallet and pulled out a crisp $1,500 bill. All right, here's the first half. When can you start? I can get the crew out here first thing tomorrow morning, Marcus assured me. We'll have you back online in no time. As the two of them turned to leave, I called out, just make sure you don't damage anything else in the process, okay? Marcus chuckled. Don't worry, I'll be extra careful. This time. I watched them go, a mix of relief and trepidation swirling within me. Part of me was grateful to have a solution in sight, but another part couldn't help but wonder if I was making a mistake by trusting Karen and her cousin. When I returned to the living room, Sarah was waiting anxiously. Well, they're going to start the repairs tomorrow, I explained, sinking down onto the couch. But I had to pay half the cost up front. Sarah's eyes widened. Half? That's a lot of money. I nodded wearily. I know, but at this point, I don't have much choice. At least it's a start. Reaching over, Sarah gave my hand a gentle squeeze. I just hope this all works out. I'm tired of being disconnected from the world. Me too, I murmured, my gaze drifting to the empty TV screen. Me too. As the sun set outside, casting long shadows across the yard, I couldn't shake the feeling that this saga was far from over. Karen had already proven herself to be reckless and unpredictable, and I couldn't help but wonder if her promises of repayment were nothing more than empty words. Time would tell, I supposed. But for now, all I could do was wait and see what the next few days would bring. True to their word, Karen's cousin Marcus and his crew arrived bright and early the next morning to begin the fiber line repairs. I watched anxiously from the porch as they carefully excavated the damaged area, working methodically to splice the severed cables back together. As the hours ticked by, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease. What if something went wrong? What if they caused even more damage? The fate of our family's internet connection hung in the balance, and I couldn't afford any more setbacks. Finally, around mid-afternoon, Marcus emerged from the trench, a triumphant grin on his face. All done, he announced, wiping the sweat from his brow. Tested it out myself. The line is fully operational again. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. That's great news. Thank you so much for your hard work. Happy to help, Marcus replied, glancing over at Karen, who was hovering nervously nearby. Now, about that other half of the payment. Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out the remaining $1,500 and handed it to him. Here you go. Hopefully, this is the last we'll have to deal with this particular headache. Marcus chuckled. I hear that. Well, you two have a good rest of your day. With a wave, he and his crew began packing up their tools and equipment. As they drove off, Karen approached me, a cautious expression on her face. So, everything's fixed now, right? I nodded, eyeing her warily. Yes, it is, and I appreciate you holding up your end of the deal. She let out a relieved sigh. I'm so glad. I really was worried I wouldn't be able to make it work, but my cousin came through for me. Well, don't think this is over yet, I warned, my tone sharper than I intended. You still owe me $500 a month until this is paid off. And if you miss a single payment, I won't hesitate to take you to court. Karen's eyes widened, and she nodded quickly. I understand. You have my word. I'll make those payments on time, no matter what." With that, she turned and hurried back to her own property, leaving me standing alone in the yard. As I watched her go, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Had I made the right decision by trusting her? Only time would tell. But for now, at least, the internet was back up and running, and my family's digital connection had been restored. It was a small victory, to be sure, but one that I would gladly take. As I headed back inside to tell Sarah the good news, I couldn't help but let out a weary chuckle. Sometimes, life was just like that. A series of unexpected crises, each one more bizarre than the last. But no matter what, we would find a way to overcome them, together. After all, that's what family was for.